Welcome to another deep dive, and this one is going to be a fascinating one, I think. A little bit unnerving, maybe, too. We're going to be talking about AI and psychology.
Yeah.
We have two academic papers that we're going to be looking at, and
Right.
we're going to be looking at kind of the good and the bad, or the potential benefits, and then also the risks,
Yeah.
and kind of how artificial intelligence is being used to understand the human mind.
It's a really hot topic right now, and
Yeah.
it's changing the game for psychologists, I think, in a lot of ways, both good and bad.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the papers we're looking at was published in December of 2023.
Okay.
It's by Sebastian Weide, and one of the things that it really highlights is some of the breakthroughs, some of the amazing things that are happening.
Okay, well, what are some of those?
Well, for one thing, AI is being used to analyze massive amounts of data in psychology research. I'm talking data sets so large that it would take humans years to, try to go through this and make sense of it. And AI can go through that in a matter of hours or minutes, maybe even.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So, for example, there's been a lot of discussion about, the impact of social media use on teenagers, especially when it comes to like depression.
Right.
And, so there have been studies where researchers have used AI to analyze millions of social media posts and alongside like electronic health records,
All right.
and what they found was, a specific pattern of language use that actually predicted depressive symptoms with like 80% accuracy.
80%. Wow, that's amazing.
It's incredible.
So it seems like, AI can really speed up these kinds of discoveries.
Absolutely. And it's not just about research. I mean, imagine like, AI algorithms being able to analyze your specific symptoms, your therapy history and everything, and come up with like exactly which treatment would be most effective for you.
Wow, so it's like hyper-personalized therapy.
Exactly, instead of the kind of one-size-fits-all, approach that we've had in the past.
Yeah.
And then there's also things like AI-powered virtual reality therapy, which is becoming more and more common.
Really? So what is that?
So essentially what it is it allows you to confront your anxieties and stuff in a safe kind of simulated environment. So let's say you're terrified of public speaking.
Right.
You can practice giving a presentation in virtual reality, and the AI will actually control a virtual audience. And that audience can, react to your words and your gestures and everything.
That's really wild.
It's kind of like having a personalized training simulation for your mind.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a video game for therapy.
It is in a way, yeah.
That's cool.
And then we can't forget about AI's potential in diagnosis. Imagine AI analyzing brain scans to help doctors diagnose things like Alzheimer's disease. Much earlier and more accurately than we can today.
Wow. So AI is kind of a tool for therapists, but it's changing how research is being done and how conditions are diagnosed, and even how therapy itself is delivered.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it.
So, it sounds like it's all great, but it can't all be positive, right?
Well, you're right to be a little bit cautious.
Yeah.
One of the big concerns that Weide's paper raises is this potential for AI to amplify existing biases.
Okay.
If the data that is used to train the AI is biased, then the AI's recommendations and diagnoses could be biased as well.
Yeah, so we have to be really careful about, what data is being used to train these systems.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly, yeah.
And then, we also have to be careful about relying too much on AI, Therapy is really about building a connection with another human being.
Right.
And while AI can be a very helpful tool, it can never replace the empathy and the judgment of a trained psychologist.
That's true, yeah. It kind of makes me think of those sci-fi movies where the robots are trying to replace the humans, and it always ends badly.
Yeah.
So, I think you're right. The key is to see AI as a partner for psychologists and not a replacement.
I think that's a very good way to look at it.
Yeah.
But there's another ethical layer to consider here.
Okay.
Especially when AI is analyzing such personal data, where do we draw the line between helpful analysis and a potential invasion of your privacy?
Yeah, that's a question that comes up a lot these days. And, if AI is analyzing our therapy sessions and our brain scans, and maybe even our online activity.
Yeah.
Where does it end?
Yeah, it's a complex issue. There are no easy answers.
Yeah.
But it's a conversation that we need to be having, for sure.
Okay, so AI is really shaking things up in the world of psychology. But what about this whole digital twin concept?
Okay.
Is that just science fiction, or is that something that's actually on the horizon?
Well, it might sound futuristic, but digital twins are actually being used in fields like engineering and manufacturing already.
Really? So what exactly is a digital twin? I mean, we're not talking about clones running around or anything, are we?
No. Not at all. Think of it this way. A digital twin is a virtual model of something real. It could be like a piece of equipment.
Okay.
It could even be like a human organ. And you basically use sensors to collect data about the real-world counterpart. And that data feeds into the digital twin so that it can basically simulate how the real thing behaves in different situations.
So it's like a simulation of something real. But what does that have to do with psychology?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. What if you could create a digital twin of a human mind?
Hold on a second. So you're saying, like, we could simulate someone's thoughts and their emotions and everything?
Yeah.
That's kind of creepy.
Maybe a little bit, but it's also incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about potentially being able to personalize medicine and therapy
Okay.
like never before.
Yeah.
You know, a digital twin could help us understand how your mind works,
Okay.
how it might respond to different medications or therapies.
Okay.
We could even use it to test out different treatment approaches in a safe virtual environment before applying them in the real world.
So it's like running a simulation to find the best possible treatment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The July 2024 article that we're looking at details how companies like BMW are already using digital twins to optimize car design and manufacturing.
Oh, wow.
You know, they can simulate how a car will perform in different conditions before it's even built.
Yeah.
So imagine being able to do that for therapy protocols.
Yeah, that's mind-blowing. So we could potentially test out different therapy approaches virtually before actually trying them out on real people.
It's exactly.
That could be a game changer, especially for people with, like, really complex mental health needs.
Yeah, I mean, the potential is huge.
So are there any real-world examples of this happening in the field of psychology yet?
There are some really fascinating examples, and we'll get into that in a bit.
Okay.
But I think it's time to take a closer look at some of the ethical considerations surrounding digital twins.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
You're absolutely right to question the ethics of it all. I mean, it really is uncharted territory.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of unknowns, and one of the biggest concerns with digital twins is data privacy.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like, if we're creating these virtual replicas of people's minds, who owns that data?
Right.
And who has access to it?
It's a critical question. I mean, imagine the potential for misuse if that data falls into the wrong hands.
Right.
We need very clear guidelines and regulations to protect individual privacy and to prevent this highly sensitive data from being used for, you know, things like discriminatory practices.
Yeah. It's a little bit unsettling to think that somebody could potentially have access to, like, a digital model of my mind.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how accurate these digital twins really are.
That's another really important consideration.
Yeah.
Digital twins are only as good as the data they're based on.
Right.
So if the data is incomplete or biased or just plain wrong, then the digital twin won't be a true reflection of the person it's supposed to represent.
Right. So garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
Like we were saying before.
We need to make sure that the data that's used to create these digital twins is comprehensive and accurate and represents the wide range of human experiences.
Right.
Otherwise, we risk creating models that are biased and could have some unintended negative consequences.
It sounds like there's a lot of responsibility that comes with creating and using these digital twins.
Absolutely.
What of the psychological impact on the person who's being modeled?
Right.
I mean, what does it mean for someone's sense of self if there's a digital version of them out there?
That's a fascinating question, and it's something that philosophers and psychologists are really starting to grapple with.
Yeah.
I mean, does your digital twin have free will?
Wow.
Does it make choices that you wouldn't? Does it have its own consciousness?
Yeah.
I mean, these are questions that we don't have answers to yet.
It's all getting a bit Black Mirror, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
So all this talk about digital twins, is this actually happening in psychology right now, or is this all still theoretical?
Well, it's still early days for digital twin technology in psychology, but there are already some really intriguing applications.
Okay.
One example that caught my eye is Dassault Systèmes' Living Heart project.
Okay, the Living Heart project, what is that?
So it's a digital twin of a human heart.
Okay.
And scientists and engineers used vast amounts of data from real hearts
Okay.
to create this virtual model that can actually simulate the heart's intricate functions
Oh,
and
wow.
how it responds to different stimuli.
So they basically built a virtual heart that beats and responds just like a real one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Why would they do that?
Well, the potential applications are huge. I mean, doctors can use it to test out different treatment approaches for heart disease.
Okay.
They can simulate how a patient's heart might respond to a new medication or to a surgical procedure.
So it's like they can practice on the digital twin before they operate on the real heart.
Exactly.
Wow.
And this could revolutionize how we diagnose and treat heart disease.
Yeah.
Now imagine applying that same concept to the human brain.
Oh,
A digital twin of your brain could help us understand how your mind works
right.
and how it might respond to different therapies or medications.
That's incredible. So we could personalize mental health treatment in a way that was never possible before.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's shift gears a little bit. We've been talking about the future, but what about the here and now?
Okay.
What trends are you seeing in the present use of AI in psychology?
Well, one trend that's really gaining momentum is the rise of online therapy and mental health apps that are powered by AI. These platforms offer much greater accessibility and convenience, especially for people who might not have access to traditional therapy.
Right. So we're talking about therapy apps that use AI.
Right.
What can those apps actually do?
Well, they can do a lot. Some of them offer personalized guidance based on your specific needs.
Okay.
Some can track your mood and your sleep patterns. Others use AI-powered chatbots that can provide support
Okay.
and even connect you with a human therapist if needed.
It's amazing how technology is changing how we access mental health care.
It really is.
But are there any downsides to this increased reliance on technology?
Of course, one concern is the potential for depersonalization. I mean, therapy is about building a human connection.
Right.
And we need to make sure that technology doesn't replace the empathy and the understanding that a good therapist provides.
Yeah, I see your point. It's like we're always trying to find that sweet spot where technology enhances human interaction, but doesn't replace it completely.
Exactly.
Another important trend is the use of AI to analyze large data sets from electronic health records. And this can actually help us identify individuals who are at risk of mental health conditions much earlier than we can today.
We're talking about predictive models that could spot potential mental health issues before they even become a problem.
Yes, exactly. Imagine being able to identify children who are at risk of developing anxiety or depression.
Wow.
We could intervene early with preventative measures and support.
That would be huge.
It would.
But again, we have to be really careful about privacy and data security.
Absolutely.
I mean, access to sensitive health information requires some really robust safeguards
Right.
to protect individuals and to prevent discrimination.
You're absolutely right. Data security and responsible use are paramount.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that AI is being used ethically and for the benefit of everyone.
It sounds like the future of psychology is going to be incredibly exciting, but also really challenging.
Yeah.
It seems like psychologists are going to need a whole new set of skills to navigate this rapidly evolving landscape.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, psychologists of the future are going to need to be data savvy and tech literate and well-versed in the ethical considerations of AI. It's a fascinating time to be in this field.
I agree. It's a time of incredible change and discovery. But before we get too carried away with the future, let's bring things back to our listeners.
Okay.
What does all of this mean for them? What's the takeaway for someone who isn't a psychologist?
I think one of the most important things is for people to start becoming more aware of how AI is already influencing our lives,
Right?
especially when it comes to things like mental health.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, think about the apps that you use, the websites you visit,
Right.
the information you consume. A lot of the time, AI is working behind the scenes, shaping your experience.
It's true. It's almost like we're interacting with AI on a daily basis without even realizing it.
Right.
And it makes you wonder how much it's already shaping our thoughts and our emotions.
It's definitely something to think about. And as AI becomes more and more sophisticated,
Right.
you know, we need to be part of the conversation about its role in society,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to something as personal as mental health.
So we can't just passively accept these advancements. We need to be actively engaged in shaping how they're used.
Exactly. We need to ask ourselves, what are the boundaries that we want to set? How do we make sure that AI is used responsibly and ethically, especially when it comes to these really sensitive areas like mental health?
It's a lot to consider, but I think it's clear that the intersection of AI and psychology is going to be a major force in shaping the future.
Absolutely.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground, from AI as a tool for psychologists to this, kind of mind-blowing concept of digital twins.
It is pretty wild.
But before we wrap things up, I have one last question that's been bugging me.
Okay.
We've talked about AI supporting psychologists, but could AI someday actually be the therapist?
Oh.
Could we see a future where we're, confiding our deepest secrets to a chatbot instead of a human being?
It's a question that a lot of people are asking, and it's not so far-fetched, considering how quickly AI is evolving.
Right.
But even if AI becomes incredibly advanced to the point where it can, mimic empathy and understanding, I wonder if people would truly be comfortable opening up to a machine.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there's something inherently human about that therapist-client relationship that AI could never really replicate.
That's a really good point. Maybe there are just some aspects of the human experience that can only be understood by another human being.
Yeah, and it seems like the more we learn about AI and psychology, the more questions we uncover.
That's true.
But I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It means we're approaching this new frontier with curiosity and critical thinking.
Absolutely.
Which is essential.
I totally agree. This deep dive was just the beginning, I hope it sparked some curiosity in you to learn more about this really fascinating field and how it's evolving.
I think it definitely has. So to all our listeners out there, what aspects of AI and psychology are you most intrigued by? And what will you do to learn more?
Yeah.
And what role do you see yourself playing in this rapidly evolving landscape?
That's a big question.
The intersection of AI and psychology is one of the most exciting and challenging frontiers of our time.
For sure.
It's a journey of discovery that we're all on together.
I like that.
So stay curious, keep exploring, and until next time, keep diving deep.